Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Mocha's application team doing our Design Shop talk today. If you have questions while we're live, type them in the chats and I will get to them as we're live. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube on a weekly basis every Thursday, kind of going forward. So if you have questions, just type them in while we're live. If you have questions ahead of time, you'll see this posted on a few of the groups in Facebook, this little thing. Type the questions there, and that's where I get the ones to start off with. So I've got a handful that were sent in before time. I'll start with those, and then I will jump over. I have a second monitor set up over here, so let me make sure both are up. They are. Excellent. Okay, cool. All right, so getting started. I'm looking to get into Appliqué and using my laser cutter to cut the fabric out. Any tips? Okay. So that's cool. Laser fabric. So the laser is going to burn material. Okay. So it's going to make your shape smaller. So, if you check with your manufacturer, you can figure out what the kerf is, which is the width of the burn mark. And, you can account for that if you want. Most of the time it's not going to matter that much. It only really matters if you are, it's not a synthetic material, and synthetic materials, it seals your cut. Hang on one second. A little quieter. Sorry. My friends are sitting out in the main area being very loud. It was really distracting. All right, I apologize. Let's see. Oh, so if it's a synthetic material, it's going to burn the edge of the material, and that will make it where it's sealed and it won't fray. Now, if you're using a cotton, for instance, cotton, it's just going to burn, right? So make sure it's moving fast enough to cut the material. And you also want to make sure your shape is large enough so that when the satin stitch comes over it, it's not going to cause that material to fray out, okay? So I know when I started doing appliques cut out with my laser, I actually called the manufacturer and asked them what the width of the laser beam was when it would go cut stuff so that I can then make the shape that much larger so it would be where I wanted it to be. I'm a bit of a nerd that way, so that's just what I did. But that would be my main tip there, is to take that into consideration. Good morning, Sherry. Thanks for joining. All right, as far as creating your files for the laser, I mean, you draw whatever shape you want that it's going to cut, and you can take this and do file save it as an SVG or an EPS, whatever your machine uses, DXF, SVG. Mine usually uses just an SVG, so I save it off as that. And then I can open this up in the software specific to my laser to bring it in. Okay. Good morning, Georgia. Thanks for joining today. All right. I hope everyone's having fun at the trade show out in Vegas. They got the new machine there to look at too, which is crazy cool. All right. How would you set up the color change for a puff design like this? All right. So first and foremost, this is when you're doing puff with multiple colors, you're getting into advanced digitizing in general. How I would do this is I would sew the border first. So that white stuff, I'd sew first, no puff. So just sew the border. Then you'd lay the puff down and have a tack down stitch. I usually do an edge walk sort of thing. Go and secure the puff down along here to hold it still. From there, I would just work from bottom to top myself and do the red, then the white, then the blue, and then the stars on top of that is how I would work it. Just so I'm going from bottom to top as you're going out. Things to think about when you have overlaps with here, you've got to be careful making sure you actually have overlap. If the stitch directions are all the same direction, some of the thread's going to sink, so it's always a good idea to, if you notice the stitches here are running this way, these are running that way. So it's because they're at different angles, your stitches can sit on top of one another rather than if they're parallel, these are going to blend into those, right? So you'll get kind of a bleeding look rather when you take one and rotate it and lay the other over. Now these stitches are holding the top stitches up, right? So changing your stitch directions along there can help kind of keep things from sinking in, making sure you have overlap, things like that. But that's how I would do it. Like I said, this gets into the complex category. And also remember, these ends, you have to make sure you're capping appropriately, so that underneath here you have stitches running this way, and then you do the cover coat, the cover stitch on top. Okay. Can you talk about the new feature in DS12 where you can add DST files as typeable fonts? Sure. Okay, so let me go find one. My design, things I bought, fonts, A, B, C, D, E, F, fonts. I don't know what any of these look like anymore. Let's do that one. All right, so let's do A through E. All right, so this is the large size. This is the capital, I don't know, lowercase and capital A's all the way down through the lowercase and capital E's. Oops. All right, drag those over, open them all up. All right, so I got a bunch of letters here. So first off, I figure out what size this is supposed to be. So I think this is supposed to be a 3-inch font, maybe 2.75. If I had the original where I bought it from, I'd know for sure. But if I had to guess, this is probably intended to be a 2.75-inch font. All right, the only reason I need to know that is what am I going to do? I'm going to select my letter, right-click, and say Save Letter. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to say New. This, oh, cancel. Bonobo, oh, all right, New. I like to name the font the same thing. Boingo. Large. And then this is a DST file. So I put the name of the font, what size it was supposed to be, and then DST. I'm going to say OK. That's going to create the font for me. Over here, I'm going to go and put 2.75 because I think that's what it's supposed to be. And then this is a capital A. So I'm going to type in my capital A and say OK. It saved that one. So now I can come to this one, right click, save letter. It's still there, so I just need to put the lowercase a and say OK. Go to the B, right click, save letter, capital B. Go here, save letter, lowercase b. Save letter, capital C. I'm just going to do the ones I pulled up and then I'll show you how to use them. Save letter, lowercase c. Save letter, capital D. Save letter, lowercase d. All right, that's enough. Okay, so then just to make this quick, I'm going to say close all. Closes them all. No, I don't want to do that. So why did I do that? Because I did these. So now if I want to continue, I can drag those over. So I don't have a gazillion files open. But here, now that font is going to show up under my custom fonts here. And there's the Boingo large that we just did. This is a warning that this is a expanded stitch type DST font. But now I can do A, B, B, C, C, so on and so forth. So now it's typeable, which is pretty cool. Okay, now keep in mind, these are fonts that were digitized as a specific height, so you need to use them in those heights. Okay. All right. So that's how you use that. They will show up here under custom. You can see here are the ones I've done before. All right, cool. Any questions with that? We have a few typed in. Let me see what they are. Are there any videos to help knowing how to save files? Okay, so I don't think there's videos on that. So when you go File, Save As, what you want to do is navigate on your computer to wherever you want to put it, right? So I have an area set up on my computer where I save designs. So for me, it's under, I have a folder set up on a Dropbox folder for my designs, and I save my crap there. But you basically find where you want to locate it, whether it's your downloads folder, let's say documents for this one. And you would name it whatever you want, and it's going to put it in there. So the key to this is making sure you're putting it in a folder you know where it is, right? After that, all you have to do to go reopen it is go to that folder, find your file, which happens to be right there, and then open it. So just hitting File, Save As, and hitting Enter, if you don't know where you put it, like what that folder it saved into, you're not going to be able to open it again later. Okay, does that help at all, Georgia? All right. Are there any open type fonts in DS11? Okay, so open type fonts are computer fonts. They have really nothing to do with DS11 or 12 for that matter. They are just fonts you install on your computer. Once you install them on your computer, then they're available. So that means like you can find, there are a lot of websites that will sell you font files, right? And they're sold as OTF or TTF. Those are typeable ones. If you go to Word or any document type within your computer, they will show up as a font type. For DesignShop, those show up here under TrueType fonts. And down here are all computer fonts, ones that I've either downloaded or like Lemon. I like Lemon. Like this one I just think is pretty. So this is one that I purchased, right? So that is a font that I found that I happen to like. Download it, installed it on my computer. When you install these fonts, you have to close DesignShop. When you open it again, they will be available. Okay. So the key to finding fonts that have the swirls that you want is find a font that has the swirls that you like. A good place to always look is Google Fonts. They're free for lots of use. Google Font. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, so Google Fonts are free for all sorts of use, and they got a gazillion fonts out here. So you can always look there, and then if you find one that you like, I don't like this one, but just pretend, you can say Get Font, and then you can download the font. So once I hate this font, but I'm going to install it. I've committed. Yeah. So you download it, open it, install it on your computer, and what is this called? Protest Gorilla. That's lovely. All right, so if I close DesignShop, reopen it. Where did DesignShop go? There it goes. Okay, it's opening. New text, protest. Now it's there. Anyway, so now it's there for me to be able to use. Okay, so that's how you would deal with open type or true type fonts. Open type fonts are ones that are able to be used in V11 forward. Before that, 9 and 10, you could only use true type fonts. So it's just the extension, TTF versus OTF. 12 can use OTF and TTF. Okay, Georgia, does that help any? All right, let's see what other questions we have. Okay, so we did that one. When embroidering on fleece as a fill, what densities would you run? Okay, so you want a big name and then a small name. You say you're going to use a cutaway backing, good job, and then 505 again, good job. So density is not really the thing that concerns me with this whole project, okay? So embroidering on fleece or anything fluffy and squishy, I will say, things move around. So the name of getting a quality stitch out is making sure it holds still. So using a cutaway in 505 helps, but the material still is springy, right? So how are you securing the layer of, top to bottom from it shifting? You secured the bottom, but the top still is going to want to move around. So thinking about that is really the critical part of this whole entire project, is making sure you're holding it still. So what I would suggest, using the smallest hoop that the design fits in, all right? That way you're hooping it so it's as taut and as secure as it can be with the hoop. Using a topper, okay, that helps keep the stitching on top of it and from sinking in. And then using an exceptionally good underlay, okay? Because if you just, you know, do a center walk and then go into stitching, you're not holding anything secure, and it's going to want to move around. So that's important, is to hold it still. So personally, I would use the crosshatch underlay. We'll go generate one in a minute. I would use that, and maybe even an edge walk before going into the top stitching. As far as density, 3.7, 3.8, that's what I would do, but the density is less than, well, all right, let me take that back. It also gets more complex if you're doing light colors on dark. Let's say the blanket's black and you're using white thread. You're going to have to do more to cover up the black than if it were in reverse, black covering up white. So those are all considerations for what you're going to be working with. So if I come in here and say text, and let's make it a fat font. I'm going to use the block 2 because it's a big puffy font. Oh, Bafo is prettier. Let's use Bafo. At least it's pretty. I'm going to make that 3 inches. All right, so I got some big old text here that's 3 inches tall. Other things to look at would be, instead of having all these stitches turn around, because as I said, preventing motion of the material is important, I would come into it and change this to a flat fill. Okay, that way it's sewing in one, it's just going down, and you're not worrying about kind of the, as it sweeps around things, overdoing it and pushing the fabric as it's making those turns. Okay, so a flat fill, I would do that. Underlay, you can use that, or I would probably do fill and fill with maybe a slightly lower density than I normally would use. I don't know, 45, 135, 90, 0, it's all the same. So check, all right, that's probably a little much, but you get the idea. So what it's doing is it's doing a crosshatch. So that's, oops, let's redraw it so you can see it again. So 15, yeah, it's a bit much, but you can see what it's doing. It's doing a crosshatch to hold all that still. So I went too small. Let's try 20. And turn off 3D so we can just look at it. So I like that better. Border margin, I would push it a little bit closer to the borders. No closer than that. That's as close as I'm usually willing to go. And there you go. So it does a crosshatch that holds it still. You have a topper. And then you sew your top stitching on there. Okay. Other things you can do, I wouldn't say they're necessary per se, is you can use a primer stitch and match the blanket. So if you really want to make sure that all that material around it is secure, and it, particularly if the material wants to eat your stitching, if it's extra fluffy, you can use a primer stitch and maybe make that 20 or so. I don't like that, but I would change the shape of this, change that border. Let's do it again. Primer, let's use the default. That's better. Okay, so you can use a primer stitch, and if that's a black, you know, let's say it's a white blanket, I would sew that in white and then sew this. Okay, do you need that? No, but it's just another technique at your disposal. Okay. Yeah, so the underlay is kind of the most important. Georgia, what version of the DesignShop do you have? Because the check updates doesn't work in some of the older versions. So are you using V12 or V11 or V10 or V9? So there was a question. When I check for software updates, I get a message of no internet connection. Yeah, I mean, you can always go to the thingy, that's really helpful. Let's see if it's here. Melco. Let's see. DesignShop V11 or 12. Proceed to download. I don't know what's here. Oh, I really don't want to download this while we're live. Yeah, so that's the latest version there. So you can always download new versions under the Melco download thing. But what version are you using? V11 Pro. I don't remember which version. Scott is on, I think. The question is the check for updates. But yeah, you would need, I don't know. I don't know if it works in 11 or not. I know it works in 12. So Oh, the latest update for 11 is v11.3.88. So if you're already running that version, you have the latest update. Okay. Thank you, Scott. All right. So check what, and you can see the version you have by going help about. So I'm running the latest of v12, but you can also, v11, that same help about will show you what your version that you're running. Okay. All right, what other questions do we have? So I talked about the fleece, we talked about Typeable, and did those. So I don't have any other questions that were sent in ahead of time. Let me make sure I didn't miss any on the live. Doesn't look like I did. Cool. So if you have questions, type them in, because I'm going to run my mouth for a little bit just so I don't cut people off if you're typing in questions. The service pack for version 12 was released, so you can update it. 12.2.36 is the latest there, and there's a bunch of new fonts in that version that I've been totally loving. So yeah, I believe that one also put, oops, cancel. That one also put an additional one here for the beveled rectangle as well. The rounded was already there, and now you have a beveled rectangle, which again is just pretty cool to be able to make a quick shape like that. Yeah. So be sure to check that out. Get your new fonts. They're pretty. And Scott did an amazing job. They sew beautifully. All right. Any other questions before I call it a day? If you're in the Vegas area, pop by the trade show. I've got a massive booth there. You can go see the different equipment running, the new machine summit. I did a brief live on that earlier this week. If you guys want to see it again or have questions about it, I have one out here. I can't do it from this format, but I can stream it from my phone. So, any other questions before I pop off for the day? I don't see any typed in. All right, y'all, have a fantastic week. I will be back next Thursday. So any questions you might have, think them, write them down, type them in. Ooh, that was fun. Type them in when you see the this little screen there on the different social medias. Yeah. I will be back next week. Talk to you guys next time. Bye, everyone.